Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for another week. And joining me, as always, Tom McGill,
Hello.
Dan Miller,
Hello.
and Rick Legato. Rick is absent at the moment. He is currently working on a replacement for the apostrophe, and it's taken on a much more scope than he originally had planned, such as changing the literary world from the ground up. It's a big task.
So we're replacing him with a garden gnome, and if the garden gnome
Small comma, big
does
task.
better.
Yeah, well, it's a garden gnome. It's a clone of a garden gnome from a galaxy far, far away. That's right.
I'm wondering what is he supposed to hold? Did he go? I once caught a bounty, and it was this big.
Well, after I disintegrated him, this was all that was left.
Well, you're not. If by bounty you mean the delicious chocolate treat,
that'd be a
it
nice
comes
one.
with a bowl. So
All right.
he's a servant bounty hunter, basically, and he's flat. He sits against the wall, and yes, you either put your car keys in the bowl or chocolates, depending on what sort of house you're running. So yes, Rick's with us in spirit. He's alive and well. COVID hasn't taken him out.
Good.
But yes, he's quite busy at the moment doing some assessment and various other things. And as I said, he's a one-man crusade to change the face of writing as we know it. Allow me to introduce the film that we're having a look at today. It's the 1992 sci-fi film.
Nice.
Yes.
Freejack.
Freejack.
Now, before we move any further, who suggested this film?
Was it Boba Rick over there, who's currently not here, strangely enough?
Conspicuously not here.
Conspicuously not here.
I'd certainly point the finger at him now that he can't defend himself.
That's right. So I'm worried that something might get vaulted at this statue throughout the show. But, well, in his absence, they say absence is a dangerous thing, because if you're not at the table, you're the topic of conversation. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to have a look at the narrative in this episode. Normally we take 3 episodes-ish to have a look at a film. This time around, because of the absence of Rick, we're going to try to do it in 2. We'll see how we go. And the episode 1 is where Dan's going to take us through some narrative beats of the film and have a look at the film from a narrative perspective with his segment, What the Plot?
Okay.
So should we change the segment to Where's the Plot?
Yeah.
Is the plot?
Yeah.
Is there a plot?
Is the plot? Can the plot? I remember when we were talking about this before, we were planning the show and when we were going to do it, and you came up to me at some stage or other and you said, "Have you seen the movie yet?" And I said, "No." And you sort of did some strange head movements and eyebrows going in different directions, and I kind of got the idea that
You didn't cut the mustard.
yeah, that there was something missing or something terrible was about to happen when I watched the movie.
Yeah. The answer, there's only 2 answers to did you see the movie yet? One is no, the other is just a facial expression.
I say you're giving it disservice. giving the movie deserves.
No.
Well, it's 1992. So am I wrong, or do we have to hold this thing up to a higher standard than some of the other films that we've looked
There
at?
were other films out there at the time that were doing
So
better,
hang on.
and they wanted to follow suit. They wanted to make a nice science fiction movie like Terminator 2 or whatever was coming out at the same time.
So is that your theory, that it's amongst champions and therefore it should be?
No,
It should
it's
have
not.
less excuses, I'm saying.
I'm saying it's a really good B movie.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's pretty early decision coming through there with no evidence. I would also like to highlight.
See,
I watched it.
I've said it's pretty bad for a 92 movie, and Tom's gone, no, it's pretty good for a B movie.
Yeah.
So we're sort of sectioning off into subsections of the genres.
Yeah, I think
Just to throw it a
I
bone.
think the expectations were different. I think people had back then when it really got all those bad reviews, and it's not a particularly good movie, I must say. But the expectations, I think, were for something higher. It was really lauded as a
Emilio Estevez,
yeah.
Mick Jagger, Rene Russo, Anthony Hopkins, Jonathan Banks, David Johansen, another big one down, John Shea. He went on to do a lot. Jerry Hall's even in it.
Yeah, it's a cameo.
Mick Jagger's missus is in it, right? When you look at that, in 1992, you would think,
what could possibly go wrong?
yeah,
I saw
$30 million budget, sci-fi.
I saw a nice reviewer who summed up the pitch of this film. He said, the coach of the Mighty Ducks, the lead singer of the Rolling Stones, and Hannibal Lecter walk into a sci-fi movie.
Very accurate. Very accurate. And it does sound like the start of a joke, doesn't it? So yes, I'm with you, Tom. The expectations would have been high.
But mine weren't, right? I always thought this was a bad movie. So when I watched it, I was pleasantly surprised. I might be the 1/3 of us who will take the opposing position tonight, but I enjoyed the film.
My expectations were really high in 1992 when I was about to see it.
Yeah, then you get disappointed.
And then I saw it.
Then you get disappointed.
And I even recognised at the time, well, they've dropped the ball here. I don't know what this mess is. And I just couldn't follow any through line, any through story of the thing. It felt very in and out, almost like there were two stories shoved together. And we might talk about this a little bit later. There is some
Well, I can see that we're already
off-screen drama that might have driven some of it.
I can see that we're already just drifting straight to
Stop the
conclusion.
clock.
It's
Stop
like
the clock.
Yes,
straight to the conclusion.
let's Dan, take over. Come on, mate.
Okay. So let's talk about the story. So I suppose really we've got to talk. We've got to give a little bit of evidence for our conclusions that we're drawing here. So, so I wanted to talk about the story, perhaps a little bit about the characters, some of the plot points that happen, and that type of stuff. So, one good way to think about the story, I think that works really well, is to think about it in a 3-act structure, and there's a beginning, middle, and an end. So there's an opening act, there's a kind of a middle act, and then there's a sort of an ending act. And they're all characterized by a couple of different things. And this is one of the things that you were talking about random movies crashing into each other and bubbling around and becoming some sort of... So there's time travel in the start.
Mm-hmm.
There's a escape from New York junk city thing going on in the middle.
Yep.
And then it ends with The Matrix.
Yeah.
The floppy disk 5.5 megabyte Matrix.
You've skipped straight over the clumsy love story, the love interest thing that's interspersed all the way through it.
Clumsy,
even to the point where who changed the channel? I was watching a sci-fi movie here 5 minutes ago. Whoever came in here and changed the channel.
Yes. Yeah.
It felt like that about 3 or 4 times through the film.
Yes.
Especially in the first 10 or 15 minutes, which sets up the sort of movie you're about to watch, where you...
I was thinking of it in terms of, like the third act talking duck, right? So you have a movie where everybody's some rom-com with people talking, and the first act, people are talking, and boyfriend and girlfriend. Second act, things start going a little bit wrong, and boyfriend and girlfriend, and they split up. And then the third act, he goes down the park and he sits on a park bench, and a duck comes up and just says, "Hey, dude, how you going?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know, my girlfriend's broken up with me." And he said, "Don't worry, you're a champ." And like, where does this duck come from? Why is this in the movie? Nobody told me about this at the start. And that's what's happening in this movie. It starts off with time travel, and they kind of forget about time travel a little bit later on. And as we're ramping down on the time travel, the Matrix starts to climb in. All the while, we've got this dirty world, this junk world stuff going on in the background. So, what's the plot? What is the actual story? What is the good guy trying to do? What's the bad guy trying to do?
Well,
Good guy's trying to survive. What do you?
It's driven by the bad guys, really.
It's driven by the bad guys.
They
have an agenda.
Yeah, there's a deliberate. He's very reactive, but they have a plan. So it's easier to follow their story, I guess.
They have to fill bodies in the future of people who are. No, they have to fill. Yeah, bodies with brains, essentially. As
That's
people
right.
age,
They're stealing people from the past,
who are dying, who are just close to death.
and they know exactly where that person is in
Yes.
time and space at an exact time.
Right. So they have some sort of time travel snatching technology that can grab a person, provided you know where they are.
A young, fresh person with a good body.
Yes.
And you have to snatch them in the exact same space.
You don't want to
as
get an
well.
old geezer.
What do you mean in the exact same space?
Well, they had to drive that convoy at the start was to get the actual doctors, the machine, the time machine, to where the guy had to crash in the car.
Yeah, okay.
In order to steal him.
So why are they stealing people from the past? They're stealing people from the past.
Fresh meat.
Well, fresh meat in the sense
fill the
that they're
bodies.
going to copy and paste people's brains into those bodies
Into the
that
new
they
bodies.
steal from the past.
Yep.
Because the people's brains are in bodies.
They're avatars. They're meat bags.
They're,
Yeah.
bag avatars.
And they're dead anyway.
What I thought was interesting is they also frown upon these people that they're stealing from, like society in the future, don't like them as an entity. Like
I guess
they refer to them as Freejackers, and like they want to lock them out and throw bricks at them and all sorts of stuff.
Well,
it's
it's a conniving little rich guy who gets a second chance in life. Yeah, you would hate those.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what was some of the logical problems with that plot story? One of them jumps out quite bigly.
With the time
Yes.
aspect of it.
The one that I'm thinking of is, why do they have to steal people from back in time
Yeah.
to...
Yeah.
Because they ain't murderers. They take
Well-
people who are a millisecond before they die. They would be dead anyway, so they take them. And
Yes,
they can only
okay.
do that once they know that this person has died, so they can only go back in time to get them.
So there was this kind of weird legalese thing that they had to try and do, but there was another reason as well.
Well, it's either ethical or there's some sort of condition in the future that deteriorates bodies, or you don't want to put your essence into a shitty, old school, dirty model.
Oh yeah, don't
you,
they have an
you want
ozone
top of the
layer?
line.
That's right.
They have an ozone layer issue, don't they?
So there's also the escape from New York junk world where everybody's half a zombie, and so the rich people don't want to swap bodies with icky people. They want nice fresh ones. But the plot hole is that other rich people are nice fresh ones, so why can't they just swap with that fresh one?
And later in the film, they don't have any issues about killing people.
No, so why do they have this? And as somebody else pointed out, I read in a random comment, is like, why don't they time travel, vacuum clean up their own body from when they were a kid, and just keep leapfrogging that way?
Anytime you dabble in the pool that is time travel, you got more headaches than anything else. At least it wasn't one of those time travel movies where they shove the time offset down your throat, where you've got to play all these in jokes and things like that because I'm out of time. You know, Back to the Future does it. When
And
you
they're
go
trying
back,
to
they do it.
avoid
When you go forward,
themselves
they
or
do
catch
it.
themselves or whatever, and there's loops and weird things going on.
It's Sylvester Stallone with the 3 seashells all over again, isn't it? And
yeah.
rat burgers.
It's the rat burgers and things. This is the junk world that happens in the middle. So the time travel is this kind of throwaway thing that they almost kind of don't need anymore. They just kind of get rid of it as soon as they've done it at the start.
Yep.
So another thing that characterizes the movie is that it's a chase movie.
Yeah.
So and in fact, Emilio Estevez who's the hero. He's a race car driver.
Script writing genius.
What? You mean script writing genius?
Well, there's a chase movie, so you make the main character a race car driver. It's genius.
Okay, right. Yes, this is meta.
Justifies
this is on a,
why he can do all those cool
meta
stunts
level.
with cars in the future.
I'm sure that was in the pitch meeting. And Yeah. Okay. So we then spend the whole movie just chasing the bad guys, chasing Emilio Estevez, and they capture him. And then he escapes, and then they find him down the bar, and they shoot their laser guns, and he runs away, and he gets on a motorbike and kind of drives fairly slowly, and get in a bubble car and drive somewhere else.
Yeah, it is. It's a chase movie through the future, through the post-apocalyptic future.
Through the dirty world, the junk
Is
world.
it a post-apocalyptic future? It is, isn't it? Like
it's
when everybody's sleeping in boxes. I think.
Yeah, the world's gone to
some
shit.
went down.
Yeah, and the rich people are in a big building somewhere, and all the poor people live on the streets. The other thing that I thought was weird about the movie generally was that when Emilio Estevez starts babbling crazily because he's trying to find his girlfriend, right?
That's right.
And so he goes to his place where his girlfriend used to live. He says, "Where's my girlfriend? Where's my
Large
girlfriend?"
black man opens the door.
Yes, and he says, "Where's my girlfriend?" And they say, "We don't know who you're talking about." And then the people who in the apartment kind of put two and two together and say, "He's a Freejack from back in time."
Yep.
You know, and then they call the cops and all this sort of stuff happens. But
There's rewards and stuff. Is that why they're pretty?
I don't know. They didn't like the.
Is it based on the fact that there's something in it for them, or that society?
I think they know that there's a rich person involved who will stop at nothing to get that free black
that's it.
jacket.
And they don't want to be collateral.
They don't want to have nothing of it.
Yep.
But I was amused at their ability to detect Freejacks from back in time because
It must be very common.
yes, well, it might be very common, but at least everybody else on the street was a babbling lunatic just as crazy as Emilio Estevez was. They're all eating rats and, running up and down the street with machine guns, shooting each other in broad daylight.
I like the premise that they zap him in, they wake him up so that they can make sure that he's okay, and then say, "Right, let's get the brain out."
Lobotomizer.
Well, that's perhaps another part of the story that's a little bit interesting to talk about because, and we're stepping into Boba Rick territory here.
The writing.
But who was the writer?
Well, I think it's someone that we've heard of before.
Recently.
Very recently.
In fact.
Sheckley?
It was Robert Sheckley, Bob Sheckley.
And he did it, he had a lot to do with, heavily influenced over Condor Man.
Yeah, so
Our last
thing, both of them were Bob Sheckley's. Now, the thing is that I haven't read the books, but, I've read reports from people who have read the books, and they reckon both Condor Man and this one, which was called Time Inc. or something. Damn it, I can't remember exactly what it was. But both of them are comedies, at least. Both of them are funny. Both of them are satirical.
The books.
But
That's
none of that, well, at least in Freejack, none of that tends to come through. It comes through as a gritty action thriller chase movie.
No, there's no humour. Is there any humour in it?
Yeah.
Does anyone try to?
There's when Mr. Turtleneck, the bodyguard,
Yes, yeah.
when they're trapped, and he goes, "What do you mean, we white guy?" Just kidding. There was your point of humor.
Yeah.
The single point of humour.
Single point of humour.
That wasn't that funny. He was the chopper pilot in.
What's his name? What was that guy's name?
Grant L. Boone. The actor is Grant L. Bush.
I keep seeing him as, offsider, helper,
Yeah.
friend.
He was in
100 movies.
He
several
was
of
in
the Lethal
Demolition
Weapon.
Man. He was the chopper pilot, and then we
was
saw
he?
an older version of him, not the same actor. Later on, in the police room, he was the guy with all the exposition about how they used to
This
do
dude?
it in the old
That
day.
dude?
He was the chopper, the young version of the guy that had all the exposition in Demolition Man later on in the control room, talking about how John Spartan, one man army, all the rest of it. But he was the younger version. He's been in other things too. I think he's been.
Lethal Weapon.
Yes, Lethal Weapon.
There you go. And so in this movie, he has a machine gun and what else?
Turtleneck.
Machine gun and a turtleneck.
they're back in fashion.
That's almost as cheesy as
Isn't
what
it a
else.
limo?
No, he has a machine gun and a katana.
Oh, he has a sword. That's right.
Not a sword, a katana.
Sorry, sir.
Yes. That's important. It's the 90s. But I think, yes, the inclusion of the turtleneck actually fits the ensemble perfectly. Machine gun, turtleneck, and katana.
Yeah.
All right, so we haven't really... normally we go through this sort of narrative in a sort of a direction, but this movie had a little bit of trouble with direction. I
Time
feel.
travel,
So,
you can get away with it then.
yeah. So I wanted to highlight another thing, just these sort of things these blobs that sort of characterize this movie. Another one was that we had this hierarchy of bad guys.
Yes.
There's a bad guy, and on top of that was the level boss, on top of that was the sub boss, and on top of that was the real boss, and on top of that was the double boss.
Yep.
This gigantic thing. And every single one of those bosses, level sub bosses, double-crossed each other and became friends with Emilio Estevez, and then double-crossed him and then turned back. And then helped him and then stopped him.
Yep.
And I couldn't work out what the fuck was going on most of that.
I've seen a lot of films that suffer from the same thing. If you stuff around with the motivations of your characters mid-film, without any backstory or anything, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because the audience has already latched on to what drives them. They've got a general understanding of who they are, even if they're I could do anything at any moment character. At least I know that that's who that character is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you turn them into teddy bears and candy floss for no good reason, then they're gone. I'm not on board.
Yeah.
I can't hate them, love them, or anything. There's nothing I can latch onto.
So in cowboy movies, they have the black hat people and the white hat people, and it's very simple.
But Mick
Keep
Jagger,
the motivations obvious.
Mick Jagger is doing a really charming bad guy from the start.
I thought his performance in this was not the performance of a
No.
60. He's probably 58 here in this film.
I cracked up when he opened his mouth for the first time. He's in this tank and they're chasing they have to get there at a certain point in time. Don't know why they're in a rush, because it's time travel. They have all the time they need. But he opens his mouth and the first thing he says is, "Okay, let's do it." Slurred British accent. That's charming. I mean, that is not a dangerous. There's not. He looks scary.
He
but
maintained
doesn't
the
act
same character through the film, didn't he? Did you get a sense that at any point he wasn't the same character?
The way I'm going to approach this discussion is you guys are free to have your own opinions and talk and discuss things, but I'll give you the right opinion at the end.
I think as one of the most important things for an actor to do on screen is to make sure through the entire thing you are that person, right? You are pretending to be that person, therefore you act, react, you say things, the inflection, the emotion, everything is that character all the way through. As soon as you jump out or you don't match up where you were last week in that scene, the whole thing becomes a friggin' mess. He didn't do a bad job for a 60-year-old rock star.
Is he 60 in 1990?
Well, he's about 3,000 at the moment. They were making hits in the 60s.
Yeah.
He's got to be
Probably
60.
20. Yeah, you're right.
He's got to be 60. I think he's pushing 75 at the moment.
I think he's considerably older.
If only I could click on his name here and find out exactly. Continue.
All right, so yes, another big thing in the movie is that Mick Jagger is in the movie.
He's a bounty hunter.
He's a bounty hunter, so he's one of those tier bosses. Yeah,
He's been contracted to bring in the Freejack, that Emilio Estevez.
Yeah, so he's the sort of main grunt enemy who.
He seems to be in charge.
Yeah.
He gives the decision to pull out, even though the doctors
got a
aren't
big
ready. They haven't chopped his brain out yet and whatever.
He's got a big
48.
goon squad.
He's 48 in this movie.
He's 48 in that movie.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah. He does look older.
Oh, he always looks older.
Born in 43.
43.
So what is he now?
Film was filmed in 1991. He's now 76.
He's now 76.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not 3,000. Not yet.
All right, so
I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
So Mick Jagger can't act.
Can't not act. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like,
No.
he can't act, but
Like I said, I'll give you the right opinion at the end here.
I think he played nicely. I think he was one of the better.
No.
better.
You're wrong.
Look, there were only 2 points of acting in this, 2 kinds of acting in this movie, and he was nicely in the middle.
Yep.
It was either the non-stoic thing that Emilio Estevez and was she
Russo,
also from Lethal Weapon. So Rene Russo and Emilio Estevez, who don't do much at all, and then there is the over-the-top scenery chewing that every single secondary actor is doing, from Amanda Plummer to Anthony Hopkins, who always does it, to the guy with the gun who eats his food.
Yeah, the hostel, whatever
thing,
it was, the cafe.
You keep looking at me.
Junk cafe.
The last thing you see is me killing you. That guy?
Yeah, that guy.
And then the friend, David Johansen, Brad.
Yes,
he was 100% over
He
the
was
top.
everybody
he was at 12.
Everybody
Yes,
was.
12.
Imelda Plummer definitely always is anyway, because she's got, she was fed scenery with her breast milk from her parents' side.
This David Johansen in this film still had a voice box. He doesn't have a voice box anymore. Like, this is how he talks. I don't know what you're talking about. It seems like he smoked cigars this fat and gargled gravel every morning. You should hear his voice now. But yes, in this film, you can actually understand the words that he's saying.
And what about the eagle guy?
The eagle. I can't help but feel
Every single character, which was great. I enjoyed it a lot. But
I may have been abducted, and I may have some missing time, because there's been at least 3 or 4 occasions in the last 20 minutes where you guys have spoken about things in this film that I have no recollection of whatsoever. And I've got a feeling that there's blind spots going on in my memory of this film, and I blame the film.
The film does it. It's all the film. The film does it.
Because I can't remember that.
you would remember the eagle.
Is that
Dan,
is his performance
you've got the picture.
accurate?
No, I don't remember the eagle either.
Is he here?
Fucking grief.
Now
It's one of
Tom's
the
watching
most
the wrong
memorable
movies.
parts of that film. It's the when Emilio Estevez swims in the water and he lands on shore, and there's this homeless black guy.
Oh, no. No, this was not accidental. I deliberately blanked that out because I was like, holy fucking Christ,
That
what
was
the?
great. It was priceless acting.
No, that's deliberate. I'm still not finished with Mick Jagger yet.
Okay.
I read a lot of comments from people, and there were basically 2 comments. It's like 0.5, of a star out of 10 for acting. It's like 0 level acting. Cannot act 100%. And then there were people who were up the other end. These are the people with the wrong opinion, who would say something like, Mick Jagger's campy acting style in this movie was such a riot. Ha ha ha, I loved it. And those are the people with the wrong opinion. I found him to be just fucking awful. Everything. The worst thing. Okay, so there's a bunch of things were layering on top of each other. He's got this half British accent.
Yeah.
This slightly half Cockney accent that was completely non-committal. You're either, I don't know if it's Cockney or whatever, but you're either one or you're not. So he's half and half in that.
Where was it shot? Can you remember, Tom? Was it shot in the UK or the US?
Probably the US. I don't know.
Not sure.
And then the other thing was that his inflections were all over the place. So, if the line was, there he is, get him, normal people or normal bad guys would say, there he is, get him, but he was like, there he is, get him. And it'd just be this.
There he is, get him.
Get him.
I think that is
There'd be
what I
this
found made him so
uncanny
charming.
valley. This 8.9% off.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That was like just so.
Yeah, it was all
Now
filmed
we're
in
still talking
Georgia.
about Estevez, yeah?
No.
Mick
I'm
Jagger.
talking Mick Jagger.
I thought
Estevez was
we were
not
talking about
doing
Estevez
anything.
No,
because he's
no.
also got a 0.5% off in every shot as well, and that's his entire career.
Yes. No, Mick Jagger. I mean, Estevez was just doing Emilio Estevez. He was just acting.
Yeah.
Who was his character? His character was Emilio Estevez.
What was it? Young Guns, I think, is the only film where his character fitted the character.
Yes, that's
and
right.
it just happened to
It's
be
where the
a
world's
huge hit with all of these
stars lined up. Yeah.
big stars.
But that being said, Rene Russo was playing Rene Russo.
Yes.
And Anthony Hopkins was playing Anthony Hopkins.
Yep.
Right?
I guess that's why all the secondary characters shine so much.
Yeah, you might
Because
be
they're
right.
the interesting ones.
The rest of them are
There's the
phoning it
ones
in.
that are-
Phone in, give me the check, I'm out of here.
Well, that's kind of what Mick Jagger was, right? They called him up the week beforehand and said, hey, Mick, you want to be in a crazy movie? And he said, hey, yeah.
You bet I do.
Yeah.
What do I do again?
Yeah. All right. And yes, there was fairly cringy dialogue. Like that scene reminds me of bloody the ear nibbling.
Oh, the scene before he races.
Yeah, that was just like deep cringe. Like, what the fuck? So, they're trying to have a boyfriend-girlfriend moment and they're talking about ear nibbling.
Mm-hmm. I think, and I won't spoil it, but something tells me when Tom exposes just the tip of this film later on in our next episode, there could be some real reasons why this film struggled on the narrative side of things.
Okay.
We won't really spoil them, but let's look at it as a viewing experience at the moment, and then maybe we'll discuss some of those nuances that might be able to circle back and make some sense of why some of these things existed on the screen.
All right, so I think that's most of the things that I wanted to talk about. It kind of wraps up with The Matrix, which we haven't talked about at the end. So it goes all 2001, crazy Matrix, psychedelic, nonsense that happens at the end. And then there's a kind of another double cross that leaves you with a sort of a twist in the end as who's really who and what's really going on. As if this movie needed any more of that. And I don't know.
Was there anything narratively in this film that you liked, that you thought worked?
Oh, yes. No. There was the things that I kind of liked in the movie. That's a good reminder. Every now and again, there was a little flash. Like in the racing scene. There was a kind of a Michael Bay, Fast and Furious, Golden Hour, walking down the street, little flash just for a second.
Like it had been directed by somebody.
He knew what they were doing. And every now and again, in the dirty world, there'd be a little Blade Runner flash, a little flash of steamy cyberpunk future.
Yep.
Then it'd just sort of disappear again. So sprinkled throughout the movie, there was a whole bunch of those little tiny hints every now and again.
You know what it is? It's the poking machine factor. It's the poking machine effect, where you got these people that go and sit for 8 hours at the club, and they just do this or that, and then 50 minutes later, they win $70.
Yeah.
They've put 90 in, but they just had a win. And it makes all of this worth it. And I'm good for another 2 hours. That's what it felt like in this film. There was a couple of scenes where you think, oh, hang on, like that's not bad. I'll keep watching. Let me down. And then there's another one.
Yeah.
So it's the poker machine effect.
Yeah, those kind of...
little victories, lots of disappointment.
Yes, yeah. Like even in the Matrix bit at the end, the best scene in the movie is when they've got their hands on the giant balls, and there's like this lightning going between their brains, and there's like wind and stuff, and it's like, that's really cool. It looks really awesome. But
I'm sorry, I missed that. So I can't remember that.
Oh, that was a worthwhile bit.
So that's the conclusion of the film?
Yeah. That's when they're attempting to transfer their brains, right? That was one
I
big
definitely
one.
didn't see that. So I've obviously passed out towards the end of the film, but then convinced myself that I hadn't. Probably because I didn't want to go through it again.
I watched it twice.
Did you?
Just to out myself again.
Normally, I'm proud to say. In fact, every movie that we've ever done, I've watched 2 or 3 times. But this one, I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
Yep.
Come on, we've seen worse films.
No, we have not seen worse
Not
films.
Transformers.
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay, yes. Yes. In fact, this film is almost in the same ballpark as Transformers for a lot of the same reasons.
Yes.
Where it's like a trailer of eclectic ideas shoved together, and then someone went through later and with their finger drew some roads in amongst the ideas and said, yeah, just make that work.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it's in the ballpark of it's so bad it's good. It's entertaining.
No.
I don't think it's bad enough to be good bad.
No, it's not the right kind of bad for me.
I know where you're coming from, but it's just not making it there.
That's what I can do with that.
Emilio Estevez in the bedroom.
Yeah. One of the first shots in the film is
yes. His shapely
Emilio's
thighs.
ball sack hanging out in the bed. Yes,
Full
indeed.
resolution.
So yeah, I don't know. That's it. So I don't know. Everybody probably knows our conclusions already, but
Did any of you actually see the film before recently?
I saw it in 92.
No.
Oh, you said that. You said you saw it in 92.
I saw it originally, and I don't think it came to our shores on the screens. And the reason I'm saying that is that if you look at Box Office Mojo or even in IMDb, the budget $30 million, opening weekend $6.7 million, gross USA total $17,129,000.
30 million budget.
Worldwide, 17,129,000, which means it didn't leave the shores. It only ran domestically. So they probably didn't have an international distributor that was willing to pick the damn thing up. And we're living in the age of Canon Films at that stage and all their competitors. B-grade movies still didn't pick it up.
I read reviews from like the Washington Post in 1992, and they were very lackluster.
Cold.
Yeah, exactly. At best.
Yep. So, is that it for your deep dive into the?
A bit like this
into the
movie.
hodgepodge?
It's a bit of a mess, and it just kind of stops after a while, and you forget bits of it.
Awesome. Well, that's been another awesome episode of What the Plot with Dan Miller. But that's it for our first episode for Freejack, having a look at the 1992 sci-fi film Freejack. Notice I'm not throwing classic around. I usually throw that around like a man with 8 arms, and it has not been mentioned because this is not a classic for any reason, Tom, for any reason. So that's it for our first episode in looking into Freejack. Join us again next week when we have a look at some trivia, and we've also got a bit of a quiz to make sure to see if the boys have been paying attention. So until next time, it's bye from me.
Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
What is your ambition? How many of you are there?